The ultimate battle of survival continues as our heroes fight for their lives. As we last left off with our heroes battling the new Shadow Dragons in order to regain the Dragon Balls, Uub has since then transformed himself in combining the evil spirit of Majin Buu within him. As the internal struggle now within Uub is beginning to be a problem to everyone, our heroes now desperately attempt to fight their way through the Shadow Dragons in order to not only gain the Dragon Balls for their own sake, but also for the sake of preserving Goku's life. As once more before we begin, if you are new to this channel and have a love and passion for all things Dragon Ball and anime related, then be sure to go on ahead and smash that subscribe button and turn on all notifications by clicking on the bell icon to never miss a single upload. And if you guys love and enjoy Dragon Ball and cannot wait to see more, then be sure to go on ahead and slap a big fat like down below by giving this video a big thumbs up, along with checking out the official Dragon Ball fan mangas playlist located down in the description box below, to where there you will be able to find all the latest and best Dragon Ball fan mangas created by the community for the community. So be sure to take a minute to go on ahead and check that playlist out located down below. As we kick off Young Gigi's Dragon Ball AF manga chapter number 10, with Majin Uub having to be consumed by the evil ki within him and now transforming into evil Majin Uub, who in fact now had combined his powers not only with the evil essence that resided within him, that being the evil portion of Majin Buu, but also the unlocked power that Majin Uub originally had. As the Shadow Dragon stares on, so does evil Majin Uub. As when we take a look back on the Supreme Kai homeworld, the Elder Kai looks through the crystal ball as he goes on to state, as for this, he's been completely taken in by the evil ki. As the Kai's companion goes on to ask, is it evil ki? What the hell does that even mean? As the Elder Kai replies, how should I explain it? After being taken in by the negative energy of Super Shenron or whatever, the ki of a Majin that was dormant within Uub was released. Now Uub has completely lost the spirit of justice and became a Majin. As the other replies, a Majin? Oh right, Uub used to be a Majin, huh? As the Elder Kai continues, unless he reclaims his old spirit somehow, Uub may end up turning violent just like the evil dragons. If the transformation is drawn out for too long, he'll completely lose the spirit of justice, and he might not be able to return to his original form. Another troublesome incident has occurred, basically alluding to the idea that if Uub somehow doesn't regain the consciousness that he once had in having to fight through the evil ki controlling him, then he's going to remain the way he is, possibly forever, without ever being able to go back to his normal form. Meanwhile, back on the battlefield, the exact same Shadow Dragon he was fighting that seemed to display no signs of remorse or fear is now terrified at the idea that now he's come face to face with a very powerful Majin Uub. And what I really love is the display of Majin Uub having to raise his energy up even higher. As he begins to power up, the Shadow Dragon is utterly terrified. And this kind of makes me wonder as to what could have been from Majin Uub in Dragon Ball GT, in the fact that here we have the combination of not only the evil spirit of Majin Buu, but the goodness that once was, and the vessel of Majin Uub smashed into one as he begins to raise his energy more and more and more, releasing all of this ki from his body. The Shadow Dragon stares on as finally, at long last, Majin Uub charges on in delivering a thunderous shot to the dragon's face. And the dragon gets hit with such force that we've never seen this happen prior to when Majin Uub first fought him, because the dragon was able to absorb and suck all of his energy, which gave the Shadow Dragon the advantage. But here, evil Majin Uub beats down the Shadow Dragon so bad that the Shadow Dragon is struggling to breathe. As Majin Uub pops up behind him, he unleashes a devastating blast that literally engulfs the dragon whole. Now again, we don't know how strong evil Majin Uub actually is in comparison to Super Saiyan 4 or any of the other transformations that we've seen in this specific saga, but as evil Majin Uub blasts the dragon, what I really love is the level of depth in which we see the blast itself. The blast is so large that it literally engulfs the entire landscape. And as we observe evil Majin Uub having to simply stand there, there is no other expression on evil Majin Uub's face other than anger. And as he looks up, he spots the dragon. So the dragon had in fact survived, but barely hanging on by a thread. As the dragon then goes on to state, terrifying speed and power. If it comes down to this, I have to use my most powerful technique. to which the dragon ends up doing out of desperation, which you can't entirely blame him for that, but as the dragon puts his hands together, he seems to be formulating that of the technique that he just mentioned. As he then begins to channel his energy together, he then goes on to cry out, "Grand Death Ball!" and unleashing a blast so big and so powerful by its magnitude that evil Majin Uub continues to stare up as the blast rains down from the sky. As the Shadow Dragon cries out, "Eat this!" Eerily enough, very similar to Super Saiyan 2 Gohan versus Perfect Cell, Majin Uub does the exact same thing that Gohan did back in Dragon Ball Z, and that's channel all of his energy in the form of one singular attack. As only then evil Majin Uub fires a blast to counter the dragons. What I really love here is the level of detail that young Gigi has, because you can see how impactful this was for both individuals. As the two blasts come to a collision, the Shadow Dragon goes on to cry out, "Shit," because he's struggling, and evil Majin Uub is doing this with one hand. Keep in mind, these dragons are a lot more powerful than what we've seen in GT in comparison to Super Saiyan 4, and as evil Majin Uub continues to push more and more and more, finally, he releases even more of his power that then begins to overtake the dragon, as the dragon then cries out, "It's being pushed back!" To which, by the end, the evil Shadow Dragon is overtaken by evil Majin Uub's attack, disintegrating his body completely, as by the end, the only thing that is left is the Dragon Ball that comes crashing on down. And with the 6-star Dragon Ball having to hit the ground, evil Majin Uub is still angry. He's releasing more of his energy because he's struggling within. The evil part of Majin Uub is beginning to overtake him, and through that, as he begins to release more of his energy, the Elder Kai goes on to state, This isn't good. As I thought, it seems he can't go back to his original form by himself. We have to do something, or there's no telling what Uub will do." As they continue, so there's a need to convert negative energy into positive energy, isn't there? As the Elder Kai responds, negative into positive. "Oh, that's it!" As he finally then reaches out to Kibito Kai, he goes on to telepathically tell him, Hey Kibito Kai, can you hear me?" As Kibito Kai states, "Yes, Ancestor." As the Elder Kai then goes on to tell him, "There's something I urgently need you to bring." As Kibito Kai asks, "You want me to bring something?" And with the Elder Kai finally having to fill Kibito Kai in, Kibito Kai goes on to respond, "I see, I got it." As meanwhile, back on the battlefield, evil Majin Uub can't seem to control himself. The negative energy is beginning to leak from his body as he begins to recall memories within his head, having to constantly tell himself, hatred, it won't stop. The rage, the hatred, it won't subside, as he keeps thinking back to the original days of Dragon Ball Z, when Hercule's life was threatened, when his dog's life was threatened. There's an internal struggle within Majin Uub's head. As Kibito Kai finally shows up, he holds that of the Ultra Divine Water. As he quickly opens it, he goes on to cry out, "Uub, it's Ultra Divine Water, please wake up with this," as he splashes Uub in the face with this holy water. Very similar to that of an exorcism with holy water, we notice how evil Majin Uub is beginning to struggle, fight, and reject this, but then as Kibito Kai looks on, the old Uub is finally back. And through this, he had been able to contain the evil ki that was just released in having to finally regain consciousness. And as Uub looks on over his shoulder, he goes on to ask, "Kaioshin-sama?" As Kibito Kai goes on to respond, "Thank goodness, Uub-san." With Uub responding, "Kaioshin-sama, I'm sorry for all of the trouble." As meanwhile, when going back to the Supreme Kai homeworld, we notice how Uub finally delivers the 6-star Dragon Ball. As he goes on to tell the Elder Kai, "I've safely recovered the 3rd ball," with the Elder Kai having to respond, "It looks like it worked out somehow, great." However, elsewhere on a remote planet, Vegeta is getting ready to battle his very own Shadow Dragon as an individual that appears to be that of a woman steps forward, as she goes on to ask, "Hey you, where in the world is this place?" As Vegeta goes on to tell her, "You're gonna die now, it doesn't matter where it is," which I really love Vegeta's arrogance in this, because he isn't backing down, but neither is she, because she appears to have that of a very sinister look on her face. As Vegeta then goes on to tell her, "Let me ask you before I kill you, when the hell were you born from the negative energy?" As she remains quiet at first, she then goes on to tell him, "I was born from the negative energy when the wish, which was remove the bombs inside the bodies of Android 18 and Android 17 was granted." As Vegeta replies, "I see. Ha! Very well. I'll finish you off in no time, small fry. Basically calling her bluff. As she smiles at him, she goes on to reply, you've got a really huge attitude. It looks like the bad-mannered kid needs to be disciplined. As Vegeta laughs right back in her face, he goes on to reply, ha, unfortunately for you, I'm your opponent. I show no mercy even to women and children. As we have a little bit of a glimpse as to the older Vegeta from way back in the Saiyan saga, Vegeta finally then begins to reveal more of his power by transforming into a Super Saiyan 2. As through this, the Shadow Dragon is surprised, but she is maintaining her composure. As Vegeta laughs at her, he then goes on to tell her, alright, prepare to die. As Super Saiyan 2 appears that all that Vegeta needs right now to handle her, as he quickly charges on in, the fight finally begins. Now keep in mind, all of these Shadow Dragons from the beginning have been displaying very little power from the beginning of their fights as opposed to how they fight towards the end, so she is conserving more of her power as Super Saiyan 2 Vegeta looks to be pummeling her into the dirt, and that's exactly what he's doing. Super Saiyan 2 Vegeta beats her around so bad that it would appear from the beginning that Vegeta holds the upper hand until the Shadow Dragon breaks her fall, as she then goes on to scream at Vegeta and telling him, don't get carried away. As she then proceeds to fight back against Vegeta, she cries out, net impact! And Vegeta now is beginning to get pushed back. And with Vegeta also getting knocked back, he braces his body as she then goes on to tell him, marrying a woman's face, what nerve. This man really does lack delicacy. I won't forgive you anymore. I'm really gonna kill you. As Vegeta laughs in her face, he goes on to tell her, go for it. And go for it she does. As she then fires an energy blast from her mouth, Vegeta quickly dodges. And it appears that Vegeta is simply too fast for her because every single time she attempts to do the exact same thing, Vegeta simply vanishes. As he then goes on to tell her, the ability to manipulate special thread. It appears that in terms of punching force, it can be hardened enough to rival steel. It would be troublesome if I got caught, but you can't catch me with that degree of speed. Basically letting everyone know that she is manipulating webs and hardening these webs that according to Vegeta are harder than steel. As she then goes on to mock Vegeta in telling him, you're incredibly confident, but I wonder if you can really evade my thread. As she then goes on to attack Vegeta, instantly he dodges. As Vegeta is making one of the deadliest mistakes he could by having to be very overconfident in this battle, as he then attempts to strike her, she quickly moves out of the way and shooting yet another thread directly at Vegeta, as he then goes on to tell her, you never learn. In teleporting behind her again, as she turns around, he decks her right in the face. So every single time she attempts to do anything, Vegeta simply counters. As he punches her in the face by then having to proceed in punching her in the ribs, he knocks her back with such force that there's essentially nothing that she could do at this point to counter Vegeta's attacks. And as Vegeta continues to smile, we see how she slowly stands back up from the rubble, as Vegeta then goes on to tell her, why not surrender now and hand over the Dragon Ball? You know continuing this any further is a waste, right? But her response is very interesting because she laughs in Vegeta's face. And with Vegeta having to then wipe the smirk off of his face, she goes on to tell him, what a naive man, wow, you still didn't notice it. As Vegeta cries out, what? As the dragon cries out, clear net, trapping Vegeta in her thread, she then goes on to tell him, I can manipulate more than just one kind of thread. I set a countless number of those clear threads before the fight started, and throughout the fight as well. You only recognize the visible threads, and you didn't even notice the invisible threads. As Vegeta is beginning to get angry, she continues, of course, those threads are not just threads, they are so durable they can't be cut with incomplete power. I wrapped your whole body up before you even noticed. Of course, you've become immobilized. Now, it's punishment time, so she set Vegeta up from the beginning, but as a response, Vegeta laughs. As then she goes on to ask, oh my, did you get frightened out of your wits? As Vegeta replies, fool, you think you've won with something like this? You make light of me, as she responds, you're just acting tough. As Vegeta then responds, I'll show you whether or not it's just acting right now. As Vegeta then begins to raise his power level up more and more and more, she laughs in his face because she thinks that he's simply trying to break out, as she goes on to state, "Ho ho ho ho, it's no use. It's no use. There's no way you can snap that thread." And as Vegeta begins to struggle in raising his power up even more, she then observes how the thread is slowly starting to crack. As finally towards the end, the long anticipated fan dream had now become a reality, as Vegeta had transformed into a Super Saiyan 3. As the dragon cries out, "What?" Super Saiyan 3 Vegeta stares on, as she then goes on to cry out, "Absurd!" And I love the level of detail behind this because this is Super Saiyan 3 Vegeta following the events of GT, and he looks incredible, which is something that a lot of people wanted to see from Vegeta in Dragon Ball Z and even in Dragon Ball Super. He goes on to then tell her, "Too bad, sorry, but I'm not a half-assed opponent," as she goes on to say to herself, "Oh dear, my thread." As Vegeta continues, "Playtime is over now. I am going to finish you off." As he quickly charges on in, once again, the dragon is terrified as Vegeta comes in clobbering her, punching her in the face, kicking her onto the ground. We notice how Vegeta is simply still toying with her, but he's giving her a beatdown that surely enough she is going to remember. So as Vegeta beats her on into the ground, he then sticks his hand out as he goes on to tell her, "This is it. Final shine attack." As Vegeta unleashes a massive attack that rains down from the sky, the blast does in fact connect, and Vegeta is looking down, smiling and very happy and pleased on the end result of this battle. But elsewhere, we go back to Gohan, as he fights one of the shadow dragons of his own. The dragon that Gohan ends up fighting goes on to tell him, "Hey jerk, send me back to my original location." As Gohan goes on to reply, "I can't do that. You're gonna fight me right here." As the dragon then goes on to tell him, "Fight you? I don't even know what your objective is, but if you want to die that badly, I'd be happy to oblige." As Gohan then goes on to ask, "One question before we fight. When were you born from the negative energy?" As the dragon asks, "Me? Well, when you resurrected the Earthlings after defeating Omega Shenron, right? I was born from the negative energy of that time." As Gohan then goes on to reply, "So, the last wish that was granted." As the dragon then goes on to tell him, "I swear, Earthlings really are nothing but fools. I can't believe you summoned us again. Well, thanks to that, we are able to get out though." As Gohan then goes on to tell him, "Maybe we are fools for repeating the same mistakes, but if that responsibility is ours, then we are surely to defeat all of you with our fists." As the dragon then goes on to tell him, "What selfish prattle. You owe us big time." As Gohan replies, "We know that's wrong. We can't sacrifice the people of Earth just for that reason. That's why we're taking responsibility by fighting you." As the dragon responds, "You're really egotistical," but then Gohan cuts him off by stating, "Well, that's enough chatter. I must hurry and defeat you, or my father's life is at risk." As Gohan raises his power, he also then begins to transform, as Gohan then turns into Super Saiyan 2, and as he does so, he's taking it step by step as he goes on to tell the dragon, "Here goes." And as Gohan dashes on in, we go back to Vegeta and his dragon, as then Vegeta goes on to state, "Well, I better hurry up and look for that Dragon Ball," fairly overconfident, not knowing that the Shadow Dragon had survived. And as she slowly emerges from the rubble, Vegeta then goes on to state, "I'm shocked. I can't believe you're still alive." As she's huffing and puffing, she goes on to tell him, "If possible, I didn't want to have to change into this form, but it seems as if you leave me with no other choice." As Vegeta smiles, he goes on to tell her, "You're totally bluffing." But bluffing she is not, because then she begins to raise her energy as she also begins to transform into a hideous creature. As the narration goes on to tell us, the Shadow Dragon finally reveals her true nature. Will Vegeta be able to recover the 4th Dragon Ball as the manga chapter special comes to a close? Now, 2 things to point out here. Number 1, the utilization of evil Majin Uub, who I personally really enjoyed because You have the combination of Uub, and you have the combination of the dark energy that Majin Buu once had, and when smashing that together, it creates a very unique dynamic, but also seeing Super Saiyan 3 Vegeta in action, as it is something that many fans throughout the generations have wanted Vegeta to do from the beginning, and that's gain Super Saiyan 3. I really enjoy how Vegeta finally has that under his belt, but he's still very overconfident in his ability to get the job done, because clearly he didn't. But now that the Shadow Dragon has another form, the question is Vegeta going to get pushed to Super Saiyan 4 and beyond just to simply settle the score with the dragon? So again, I want to get your thoughts in the comment section below about this. I really enjoyed this because I can't wait to see what Gohan has to offer against his dragon, what Vegeta has to offer against his. So many interesting dynamics to this arc that, again, I want to get your thoughts in the comment section below, guys. Thank you all so much for watching. Once more, if you guys are stoked, ready, and excited for more awesome Dragon Ball content, then be sure to go on ahead and smash that subscribe button and turn on all notifications by clicking on the bell icon. Give this video a big like by slapping that like button down below, guys. Tune back in for more. Check out the previous videos if you guys have not, and I'll be seeing you all down in the comment section below. Have a great day, everybody. Peace!
This is the Galactic Emperor of the Universe, and of course I'm here to tell you to subscribe to UnrealEntGaming.
Also follow UnrealEntGaming on these social media platforms to stay connected at all times. And if you don't, then very soon you will all be dead! Oh, did someone say UnrealEntGaming? Oh my god.
The fuck, someone? Put on some clothes!
Well, why don't you put on any clothes?
What? I don't need clothes, but Jesus Christ, that's huge! What, Broly?
Frieza.
Uh-oh.
Prepare to die!